Hello and welcome to Unbreakable, the GGR podcast. I am your host, Jake Schaefer. So, welcome to the second episode. I really appreciate the five friends that I begged to watch the first one and got some good feedback. So, a few things I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna try to get better at several things in this. After getting some feedback, I'm gonna try to make this a personal growth project, if nothing else, do a little role modeling. So I'm gonna try to get better at the sequence, better at lots of stuff with this. So, first things first, legal disclaimer. This podcast is only intended as is not intended for a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Although I am a licensed mental health counselor, I am not acting as a counselor through this podcast. If you are experiencing emotional distress or mental health concerns, I strongly encourage you to seek support from qualified mental health professional in your area. Any reference to mental health experiences, behaviors, or case examples are hypothetical, generalized, or composite in nature and do not refer to any specific individual, client, or case I have seen in the past. These stories are inspired by patterns of professional observations from years of clinical experience, and identifying details have been significantly altered to protect confidentiality and comply with ethical standards. If you are in crisis or need immediate help, please contact a mental health professional in your area. The crisis contact 988 Lifeline, or go to the nearest emergency room or dial 911. Hope and help are available. So, welcome back for the five folks that might watch second one. And generally, I'm hoping to connect with people that are just interested in the aspects, concepts of grit growth, resilience, hear some stories, several things like that. So, one thing I'm always going to start defining the concepts that we're using, the core themes. Grit, a concept popularized by Angela Duckworth, the combination of perseverance and passion in pursuit of long-term goals. Growth, the process of developing, increasing, or improving. Resilience, the ability to adapt, recover, or grow stronger in the face of stress, adversity, trauma, or challenges. So that's the definitions I'm going to be playing around with. So a lot of the feedback I got from the first episode was putting a little just bit more of myself in here, trying to be off script. I will be honest, it was challenging to just feel like I was talking to some maybe random person or audience. And so get an idea of who this might be a good fit for, things that people found helpful, and some growth areas. So that's one thing I'm going to do today is talk more specifically about the difference between grit and resilience. I want to break some of these down, not only through the personal experience I've had, the professional, but a big part of just who I am and what I do. I want to get people things that can help them quickly as possible without compromising the quality. So I think the quality of what you engage with and engage in is highly important to get results. And I think there can be habits of spending too much time over focusing on possible solutions as opposed to finding something that's reliable and start doing it. So with that being said, getting into today's episode, I'm going to make this one demonstrate part of my growth process, what I do, what I've combined, what I utilize now personally in any new growth opportunity I gain, and what I do all the time, whether it's coaching or my mental health practice, what I'm going to do all the time and gotten huge amounts of success over. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to focus on the podcast. So this is going to be a little role modeling experience. Few things I took away, um, the ums. So I'm going to try to that's my goal within the growth process is getting better at not putting in filler words. So I just generally want to get way better at my communication skills. I think that'll be helpful in general, not only on this, if people are connected with this and want to get better, I want to provide a better experience, but just general communication all the time. I'm a big advocate. So getting better at those skills, always a good thing. Um, where that's gonna come in today, maybe I'll start with maybe one thing I'm just learning in real time is being a little better prep for my individual episodes. So with some of the feedback too I got, it's where I want to take the podcast in my these episodes where it's just me talking, sharing out ideas, concepts, suggestions, opportunities. I'm going to keep them to about 15, 30 minutes, get them a little tighter. People only have to listen to me for so long, and I don't need to talk all that long. I have booked my first guest, super excited about that. So that's going to be the combination, and those are going to be long form. All the episodes, barring some very legitimate reason, are going to be unedited. And that's very intentional. I think it's the the application of grit, growth, and resilience are ugly at times. They're inspiring at times. There's movement at times. There's setback at times. And I think the real-time process of editing, I just feel like it could diminish that, even for my, maybe I'm being selfish, it's just my own experience to be able to review tape. And if I'm editing it out, I don't feel like it'll be as meaningful in my growth process. I won't be able to see the growth. And so that's part of it, like having a documented growth process to look back on reflections at times. You might not feel like you're making progress, can be a really, really good tool and resource. So the second aspect of that is there's there's kind of a mistrust now in the zeitgeist of our human experience when it comes to some of the stuff AI is doing, which can be a really cool thing. Maybe I'll do an episode on that. But there's a stronger desire to make sure we're connecting, our connections are real. And so there's part of that too, of some trust here to be able to realize this is just unedited. It might be kind of low production, so that's some of the trade-off with that. But that's going to be intentional. If that ever changes, maybe just some feedback. But I'll be really straight up and give the reasons why for that. So, where I want to start with is I'm going to talk about the growth steps and I'm going to give my example in real time. Maybe this will just be self accountability. Uh, so, the growth plan, like I said, I developed this out of a lot of personal development and then heavily, heavily informed by my clinical practice that I did really heavy, hyper focused for about 10 years. And then the last 4 or 5 years of coaching opportunities I've got. And I've just seen this super highly effective. So it's the one I use. That's the role modeling of this. I this has helped me be successful. So why would I do anything else? And it can be a really good pattern. If you're looking for growth opportunity, it's a really good one. So again, reviewing that definition, and just in real time. So, I'll throw out those definitions. But the difference I see between resilience, grit, and growth in plain language, the resilience comes in at really focused strength training exercises. So when you face a circumstance, you feel competent or confident in dealing with it. Or even if you're not, you still have some dig in ability to fall back on something to get through it. So that's part of resilience. The grit just it comes in from pushing through the hard thing. I know I want to be here and I'm gonna find and tap into something in myself to work through this hard thing in the here and now. And and then the growth is a lot more reflection, long-term direction. And so the grit is short term. If you think of it like grits are sprints and growth is a marathon. And so you do different training, you do have different mindsets, you have different skills that use the two. They both get you to a place you want to be, but there's very different intention in it, and there's very different focus. So that's the plain language. So my growth steps. So defining the growth. So what I want to do, my definition is to provide a really good quality experience on this podcast. And part of what I needed to do to improve. So defining growth, reflection on what you'd like to improve, and having a target. So my target is a good experience on the show. One thing I want to get better at immediately. So the reflection question of if there was just one thing you can improve on, what would it be? And one thing I know I can get some improvement on are the filler words and being able to finish out my thought before starting a new one. So those are the two I mentioned in, in real time in the first episode, whether you're hopping in or watched it caught myself several times. So that was one thing I know I can at least get a little better at. And the most important part, if I just get better at that one thing, I'm confident it'll provide a better experience for myself. I'm going to feel less self-conscious about it and for you all listening. The pausing quick, I like the front load. So at some point maybe I'll get better at that with the tech, but I've got a few notes here, so I know the back and forth of distracting. That's what I got for now. So as you identify that one thing, you want to evaluate your strengths and weaknesses in relation to growth areas. So the self-analysis is just really important. It's hard because it's really hard to look at the stuff we're not good at, especially if we've got histories of shame or low self-esteem or lack of confidence or fear of having those weaknesses being used, or maybe in the past they've been used against us. So if you're finding any of those patterns, if you find a spot where any of those things are happening or have happened, it's really, really hard to look at the things we might not be good at or feel bad about ourselves and express them even to ourselves, especially to somebody else. So it's really, really hard. Now, where I grew in that area was the reality if I didn't identify things I wasn't good at for two reasons. One, I might not just be good at it, and so I need to stop wasting my time trying to trying to really grow in something that's not attainable. So I am terrible at athletic skills. One little bit fairness to me, I had some brain damage from my cancer treatments. So my hand-eye coordination, there's a gap in my processing. So a little bit of things like baseball, especially quick hand-eye coordination stuff is terrible. Generally too, super small. So the uncoordination combined with the general lack of skill and some lack of interest, I'm never going to hit a ball out of Fenway, not consistently. So no matter how much work I put into trying to attain that area, it's going to be a little bit futile. So that's not a goal I want to work on. So being able to focus and know that about myself helps redirect that energy. Two, the also, if I do identify something I'm not good at, but really could be, it gives me a hyper target on focusing on getting those better. So those are it's two really, really hard, or one hard area to focus on for two good reasons, but it is hard. And so it's fair to do that privately. If you're on here and you're going, I like this, I'm going to hit a growth thing. It's important. Don't share it out if you're not ready. It's okay. Like that's part of growth too. Meet yourself where you're at, right, wrong, otherwise, you're at where you're at, one thing a little bit better. And as we go on, tapping into the grit and resilience areas, it'll help supplement, the growth part. So, strengths, that's hyper, hyper important because there's stuff we're all good at. Even if you have low self-esteem, if you're on here struggling with that stuff, you're good at something. You've accomplished a goal. Even if it feels small or you're dismissive of it, there's no way you haven't done something in your life. And I like those behavioral, tangible things, you know, to you can't argue, your brain can't argue with it. You might not feel it, you might not think it's accurate, but it's a tangible thing. So just trying to think, back to when I started doing some of this growth process. I totally felt I thought crazy poorly of myself. I didn't see myself as value. I had a lot of shame. I was trying to prove myself to make myself have value. And so I started in that zone. What helped was doing an inventory like that. It was totally objective, which just it's my style. It helps my brain, but I couldn't argue out of that. So I still didn't think highly about myself. I just still didn't feel good. I still didn't even feel like I could probably accomplish these things, but I couldn't argue with the thing I did. And so doing that sort of inventory, I volunteered countless hours. So I knew I could do it, be willing to sacrifice something for the good of somebody else. I got through high school and college having come to find out are actually pretty severe learning disabilities and didn't know it at the time. Laugh about now. It wasn't funny then, kind of funny now. And so I was able to accomplish that. For any of you uh 90s movie fans out there, Tommy Boy, this was a real-time thing. Math was my by far my worst subject, part of the learning disability I didn't know about, but Tommy Boy was a huge Chris Farley fan. And so I remember when there's a scene in there where he's like, "Oh my God, I got a D. I passed." That was my math course. So I'd get like, but I accomplished B's and A's in my area I was good at with my major, but I was doing everything I possibly could, and I was never so excited about a D in my entire life. So I graduated college. But that was one tangible thing I could reflect on. Okay, I did that. Maybe I can do something even more. So that's the whole thing to wrap your brain about is, it might be just some probability, but if you have accomplished something, you can accomplish it or something else. And, and so that's good to do that inventory because it targets in on what you can accomplish. And so that next step too is once you got a list, get real specific on how you got that done and where did you spend your time, your energy, what did you focus on? And that's an exercise I'll do with both my clinical and coaching clients. Say I got a client coming in with anxiety. And so we're learning how to cope with that. And we want to grow into feeling and experiencing minimally less anxious symptoms, if not trying to resolve as much as we can the anxiety in the first place. So that's something I'll do is list that out. And how did you accomplish that? Because that's really important. Because again, we're channeling that energy. And so thinking through, well, what did I do to do that? Well, I had really good adaptive skills. So I do that. I'd tap into people I respected and I get feedback in that way of, well, I don't think I'm good at stuff. What do you see I'm good at? And so I'd have some mentors, right? And so these were things that I'd done to accomplish that. Well, those are transferable skills. Again, I've done something, this is how I got this one done. Now I can do this. What's cool is even more validating what we know now about the neuroscience. So a good understanding, um, for podcasters out there, I think it was like the third episode of Andrew Huberman's podcast. Um, gets really into the brain science, so that's a good one if you want to nerd out and understand that stuff in real time with some of the neuroscience. How the brain, I think it's How the Brain Rewires Itself is another book out there. So those are two references. But the short version is your brain can rewire and create a new neural pathway. So essentially, it's on its own tracks. If you think like coming across a dirt road, it's going to naturally go here. So face of the stimulus, go here. So this is an example, right? So you're doing the growth thing. You hit the wall of, okay, well, I can't do that. So the brain's going to go here. Now, what's cool is with focus and intention, it can actually shift. So this pathway becomes the new automatic. So essentially, this is the normal thing. This is the new thing. And eventually, the new thing becomes the normal thing. So it's like if you're driving to work, you have road construction, you have to really concentrate on the new path. Like you're just going to naturally automatic go this way. Well, if you do this long enough, you almost have to retrain your brain to go the old way, even if it's faster, right? So that's rewiring pathways. You face a stimulus, a drive to work, you go this way, spend enough time focusing, reminding yourself, and then this becomes a new thing. That's how it works. So that's how the brain works. That's how it works in growth. So again, hard thing. Your brain's you're literally rewiring itself. So that's hard. It takes time and attention, but really freaking cool. At least for me, because I'm super nerd and I think this stuff's awesome. Uh, so now you've got the steps. You got the personal accomplishment. Got a step further. Okay, now I know how I did that. So now it's identifying the change, and learning was another one of mine. So I've broken it down into this one, defined my growth, the personal accomplishment. I've got more by now. I've got a method that I've developed that I know has increased. So I've got so much data that on that. So that few tangible things I started with, and I've grown into that. And at this point, I know how to do research. I'm a super nerd. I can try things. I know given enough focus, I can get the hard thing done. And if I have a goal, especially, I just enjoy growing people. So that's one I tap into, even when I don't want to do it for myself, if it's a good thing for myself, if I add in that flavor of, oh, if I do this thing, it'll help somebody else. So that's where this comes in. If this content's helping folks, I'll do the hard thing. And so that specific thing to work on. So what I'm going to do consistently is I'm going to rewatch the episodes, uh, which are not fun. I still don't like doing that. So I highly respect athletes. I don't know what it's like for them. I've never been a high performing athlete, but tape review and watching where you screwed up, I can't imagine, at any level, college, football. Dad's a huge Iowa fan. We've been Iowa fans forever. Go Hawks. I can't imagine performing on a Saturday just botching a play. That's got to be bad enough in the moment. Now, if national TV, all these people watch you screw up, and then you're going to go back in and relive those moments. Wow, no, thank you. But I trust that tape review is a highly effective skill to get better. Players progressing throughout the season, right? And so I'm gonna do review. I've done review. I think I mentioned on the first episode that I recorded the first one and just got it out of the way. Then I went back and I heard some of it. I'm like, ooh, I think it could be a little bit better. Recorded the second one and I went and listened to it. And so that was one. So the tape review is one I'm gonna do. Uh, Also, I'm gonna done a little bit of research. I'm gonna tap into some research and find some good presentation skill development. So techniques, it might be a little bit of everything, whether it's books, even I've done a little bit of GPT stuff. So that's what I'm gonna do is some research. and practice technique. Third one I'm going to do is I'm going to keep hoping the few folks that are watching this are going to keep watching. So I'm going to consistently engage in feedback. And so that's something I already did was feedback. And here's how it works. I want to know specific behaviors. That's a good feedback thing. Sometimes we get feedback with feeling. So how did it feel? That's kind of subjective because everybody has stuff they think are good and bad or feel they're good and bad. But if you're getting feedback, giving or getting something specific, so that's the feedback model I use. So specifically, I asked, and I'm going to continue to ask, what was stuff that jumped out that you like? What was stuff that jumped out that made it more difficult to watch or got in the way? What was I doing specifically that maybe made it less engaging or made it less difficult to listen to? So even if you're liking content, what was I doing that maybe got in the way of that? So that's what I'm going to do. I know where I want to be 6 months from now because it's a long-term goal. I want to be a little farther along with presenting myself in a way that keeps the content engaging, keeps the audience going, makes it a little entertaining. Want to balance out the information sharing with some good stories. And I am going to tap into my strengths that I've identified. I'm going to do it consistently. That's a big part, doing consistent. I'm going to supplement this on my next one of what a behavior experiment. So once you get your growth plan set up, you got a really good model on how to start implementing it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to, and then get the feedback and likely plausible, possible, plausible, but not absolute. I will likely get better at the skills to deliver a good podcast. So that's that's the method. And probably the other thing is taking notes. I took notes, but even just talking through today in real time, knowing where I want to be at, make it a flow. So that's probably the other thing I'll mix in, start going is break down these individual episodes with kind of a flow, in a and very specific. So it, here's kind of the story version of it, so to speak. So to drive the point home, one thing I've obviously stated that I not an athlete. Here's where I come to got with it though. Not being an athlete, I've highly, highly come to respect athletes and sports in a different way. And maybe it even taps into high school, like, right? High school, it's got all the were you nerd, were you this, that. Oh man, I was watching, Elizabeth and I are watching CSI right now, and there's actually an episode that just popped on where they're going, well, what were you in high school? So I mean, maybe it even tracks all the way back to that, where I was like, well, I'm not an athlete, so who am I? And uh, I was the total music theater. I liked working, so I was just kind of leaned into that stuff, that crowd. And and so to do that, there was part of that like jocks. Those people are like terrible. I actually didn't think that way. Most of my friends. I was from a small school, so like my friends totally played sports and were really good at it. But I've come to appreciate another way, and so being able to tap into that and just learn about it. But man, the Last Dance documentary was just totally fascinating to me. And this is the human behavioral nerd part of me. I don't know that it was intended that way, but it was a fascinating aspect of culture and psychology into high performing teams and athletes. So that was a super nerd. Plus, I grew up in the 90s, even though I wasn't a huge basketball fan. It was the Bulls in the 90s. Michael Jordan, it just was in the culture. So it was just a fun memory lane thing to watch. I will not claim that I was the biggest fan that ever existed, but it was the Bulls in the 90s. So, what was so interesting about that, targeting into Jordan specific, the way he had to grow to get his goal was interesting because he got in those first, if you watch it, if you're interested in watching it, but when he was in with Collins, Doug Collins, when he first out of college and in with the Bulls, he used his resilience and skills, resilience, getting cut from the team, that's a resilient thing. It was cause stress, it caused, I don't know, that was traumatic for him, but it was kind of that resilience, the rubber hits the road. You face a hard thing and you're stuck and you got two paths and you pick a path that you want to keep going. So he had resilience, and I'm sure there was some of that in college. He had grit because man, if there is an example of somebody that had grit that would do whatever it took to hit a goal and push through the hardest parts of psychology and physicality and emotion to hit that, man, oh my gosh, watching that stuff. But it, but that growth spot, he he hit a wall with Doug, right? The whole offense was surrounded about the Pistons kept losing to the Pistons. Oh my God. Um, And so there came that reality of he's going to have to do something different to get the championship. And, you know, and I think I can't, say obviously wasn't on the inside, but watching the documentary, he didn't grow with Collins, but part of growth, you want to engage in folks that think and operate very differently than you. And so, even the documentary, they were same page all the time. So you can grow some, but like those are good partners, right? Growth partners are somebody that's going to challenge you to do things or see things or feel things differently. So that's how you grow is you're going to be challenged with different types of things you're going to have to do to be better and different. But so that's Phil Jackson for sure. I mean, you watch, I think it was episode 4 is the most fascinating one on a culture change and dynamic. And Jordan throws it out the right away. He's like, I don't want Phil. I want the ball. He's trying to take it out of my hands. I want it in my hands. I want the control. I want the thing. But he wanted to win the championship more than he didn't want to grow. And so Phil was just in that team and that dynamic, it was growth. He had to think differently about the game, that neural wiring, right? He had to think different. He had to adjust. He didn't reject. He still used all of his skills and strengths, everything he'd already accomplished. He seamed it into that new thing, but it was different for him. And so, that's the super nerd psychology analysis of uh, The Last Dance, Jordan's growth from an objective standpoint. But I do think it's a really good example how this process worked, identifying where do I want to be, what am I good at, what am I suck at? He was a crappy teammate in the sense that he didn't visualize other people could do the job as well. So he utilized them, but not to the degree that he had to with the triangle. So hitting that, being able to reflect on the past success and then identify one specific thing. And he hit how he was going to focus on getting the ball around and engaging his team in a different way. And I think it's pretty hard to argue with the results he got. And the other entertaining stuff about the documentary, that dude was the most competitive person I think probably ever existed on the planet, just watching some of the other aspects of that. I don't know, anybody that has to make up stories about people offending him to get drive to win ball games is just a super interesting aspect of the human psychology. As somebody who's done a lot of work with folks and what motivates them and stuff, that is hyper interesting. So, all right. So there's the growth episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I'm getting a little better. Hoping you're seeing progress. I'm open to feedback too. So if you want to keep supporting this beyond the 5 friends, I'm going to beg to keep watching it. Just share it with one person. I'd love that. hit the subscribe. Little maybe tech is another area I need to grow. I'm going to focus on this. So I think the subscribe helps build it out. And now it's time for the shameless plug. So I'm going to do some self-advertising on this, always. So my book comes out into August. The um, comes out at the end of August. So I'll be giving updates on that. It's a really great tool, leadership framework, tools for lasting impact. And it's my playbook. It's what I build. And I've taken high level concepts, made them safe. So I kind of gutted the counseling out of them and just made condense them just a few bits. So, stuff that's effective. And that's the idea. It's effective in short term and how to engage folks, and then, various aspects of what I've learned about other coaching models, books, again, what I'm good at, taking high level concepts, making them real user friendly. In the book, you can take something out, you can use it immediately. You get done with a chapter, you can go practice the skill. So, and growth models in there, so you can learn more about that. So that's shameless plug number one. Shameless plug number two is Renewed Minds Consulting. So I founded and the current CEO of Renewed Minds Consulting. We do uh, leadership coaching. We do highly effective team workshops. So if you're a leader that wants to be less stressed out by the job, more effective in your one-on-ones and leadership skills with team members, if you're looking for team workshops, we've got two, the safety effect and align and accountable. And you're going to be a good fit. If you use all the personality assessment stuff, I love it. But if it drops off and after 6 months, you're feeling like, I don't know if we got our complete ROI out of that, we got our workshops. Feel free to hit the webpage, learn more about those. And finally, if you're at the highest level of the organization, C-suite executive, we've got two amazing options that completely transform the organization. So hit Renewed Minds Consulting, find me on LinkedIn, Jake-RMC, and you can learn more about those. So that's the wrap for the shameless plug. Enjoy the time. Uh, Problems are complex, solutions are simple, the work's hard. So don't only go far back enough to find the thing to move you forward. Don't overcomplicate it. Go start doing something right away, make small gains. It's going to be hard no matter what. If you're growing, if you're tapping into grit or finding yourself in a situation where you gotta find a way to be resilient, that sucks. It's hard. It's not pretty. You can do it. Awesome. All right. I will see you on the next episode.